Good stuff in Tiger Stadium on Saturday. Not so much good stuff in Charlotte yesterday. 26-7, Carolina beats the Saints. Panthers moved to 2-0 with an impressive performance. The Saints just didn't have it start to finish. And look, they were behind the 8 ball, missing as many coaches as they were with COVID. The entire defense is just ravaged with injuries. So I realized they were shuffling a little bit on the interior of the offensive line, but essentially the offense was kind of intact outside of Michael Thomas. So clearly, if you're missing somebody up front and you're missing Michael Thomas, that's not all there, but just a mash unit for the Saints offensively and the worst day of offensive production of the Sean Payton era after what was a clinic in Week 1 against Green Bay. Kind of your initial thoughts on the Saints?
Yeah, that was my thoughts heading into the season. They're going to have to run the ball to have really any success this season. And I think they have 48 rushing yards. Like you could
and it was all from the quarterbacks.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Jameis obviously ran for that touchdown. Taysom ran for 16 yards. The running backs, Tony Jones had 3 carries for 7 yards. Kamara had 8 carries for 5 yards, and Deontay Harris had a yard on a carry. So the run game for the running backs was totally non-existent.
Yeah, so if someone told me, hey, the Saints are probably going to rush for 10 or 12 yards a game, how do you think they're going to do this season? I would tell you they're going to lose a lot of games, and that's what happened yesterday. Jameis is really, he's not a guy that I would trust to just drop back 50 or 60 times and tell him wing it around the yard. When you can get your run game going, you can get that big, heavy play action off of that. That's where Jameis does his best work at. And obviously when you go down, you're kind of forced with game flow to really have to pass the ball a lot more than you would like to. And Jameis goes 11 for 22 for 111 yards. That's just not the day you want to have. And then you kind of saw, what every Saints fan feared, those turnovers kind of creep back in. Just some plays where he's trying to do too much. And that's what happens when you're losing a football game. You feel like you got to, be Superman and come back in one play. And that's when the turnovers creep in. So if I'm the Saints, I'm not panicking all the way. Still so many injuries on that team. So many guys out.
Was just ravaged.
Yeah.
I mean, you got no Davenport, you got no Onyemata for suspension, you got no Lattimore. I mean, you're just passing Johns out. Like they didn't have really anybody on the defense. It's DeMario Davis and the misfit toys. But the stat that kind of is the overarching theme of this game for me and why the Saints were so outclassed. The Saints ran 43 offensive plays. I mean, they were 2 of 11 on third down, and we've seen Sean Payton for years get into that offensive rhythm where he's really just cooking. The rhythm's there. They're picking up 8 yards a play. They're going right down, and they got in no rhythm yesterday ever. They were constantly 3 and out coming off the field. And the Panthers, conversely, were 8 of 15 on third down. They got more than 50% of their third downs. The Panthers ran 73 plays. The Saints ran 40 plays. You run 30 fewer plays, you got no chance.
Yeah, you got no chance, and you have no run game on top of that. So when you do run plays, it's a waste of a play because now you're 2nd and 10, you're 2nd and 11, and then you're fighting from behind the sticks the whole game, and you're forcing Jameis to really be something that he's not, and that's a gunslinger. I know he threw for 30 touchdowns, but you don't want Jameis throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game. You want to get your run game going, and you want to work the play action off of that. You saw them do that at an elite level in Week 1, and then they just couldn't get back to it this week. So if I'm Sean Payton and the crew, I'm finding ways to get this run game going, finding ways to get Alvin Kamara the ball a lot more. I don't think that's enough touches for him, but when you only run 40-something plays, it's hard to really get your guys the ball.
It is. And Sean Payton came on after and said, look, there's no excuses. I got to coach. Well, look, I'll hand up, Sean. I'll give you some excuses. Your defense had no one left, and your offensive staff was more than cut in half. There are some reasons why the Saints may not have been firing on all cylinders. Some of that stuff's going to get better as players and coaches continue to come back. The interceptions for Jameis was the biggest talking point of the offseason. And he throws 2 in this game. 1, the game's decided. He's just trying to throw the ball up in the middle of the field. It's an easy interception. I don't really care about the last one. The one he threw to J.C. Horn, not great. So for as good as he was in Week 1, it was not there yesterday. What did you make of his play kind of overall in the turnovers as well?
Yeah, I think that's why people try not to overreact over one game. I think with a lot of NFL players, a lot of players just in general, you can look at their best performance possible and then look at their worst performance possible, and then normally what they are is probably somewhere in the middle. And I think
we don't have to guess because we've seen
Yeah.
both extremes for the Saints through 2 weeks.
Yeah, so normally you would say it probably will fall somewhere in the middle, just going forward through the season. This is probably the worst they could possibly play. You don't score a point in the first 3 quarters, and that's just not a Sean Payton run offense. You don't expect them to just not get a field goal at least. They just couldn't get anything done. So I don't think that's going to be that offense going throughout the season. I think Kamara's going to have some success running the ball. Sean Payton's got to be burning the midnight oil trying to figure this thing out. And I got faith in him to do that, especially when they get guys coming back.
Things are about to normalize for the Saints. They're going to be able to come back to New Orleans. They're going to get some of these players back from injury. You know, it'll look better. It's a 17-game season. They weren't going to win them all. Just a clunker of a performance by them black and gold.